Welcome to WikiPodcast. Today we're doing a deep dive into, well, an extraordinary life, a key figure from our History Makers series, Oskar Schindler. Now, you've likely heard the name, maybe seen the film, but what does it really mean to be a social reformer and activist when the world is just plunged into darkness?
That's exactly what we want to explore. How did this one person, initially a really unlikely hero, find this deep moral courage? We're talking about the darkest days of World War II. And he risked absolutely everything, saved thousands of lives against, well, almost impossible odds. So we'll trace that journey, see how someone driven, frankly, by opportunism at first, became this beacon of humanity. It's quite the transformation.
Okay, let's unpack that because unlikely feels like an understatement here. Before the saving lives part, Schindler's early life was messy, complicated. Born 1908, Zwickau, Moravia. Not exactly a star student. In fact, he got expelled, didn't he, for forging a report card?
Yeah, exactly. Forged his report card in 1924 from technical school. Gives you a bit of a picture. He was into motorcycles, racing, tried his hand at different jobs, chauffeuring, banking. A bit restless.
Restless, yeah, and maybe reckless.
Definitely seems that way. He struggled with debt, apparently quite a bit. Public drunkenness was mentioned, even affairs that resulted in children, one of whom he denied paternity for. And this background, it's really important because it just highlights how profound that later transformation really was. It sets the stage.
It really does. Because the next step is, well, it's startling. 1936, he joins the Abwehr.
Nazi Germany's military intelligence, their secret service, essentially.
And he admitted quite openly later he did it for the money.
Yeah.
Collecting intel on railways, troops, recruiting spies in Czechoslovakia.
And he got caught, too, arrested by the Czechs for espionage.
Right. But then the Munich Agreement happens in 38. Germany gets the Sudetenland, and he's released. And then, 1939, he formally joins the Nazi Party itself. It's hard to square that with the man he became.
It is. He even kept working for the Abwehr after Poland was invaded, gathering intelligence there, too. His wife, Emily, apparently helped him process secret documents sometimes. It really underlines that early phase, pragmatic, opportunistic, focused on personal gain, it seems, which makes the shift, like you said, just incredible to think about.
So, okay, the war's broken out. Schindler shows up in Krakow, late 1939, and he uses those Abwehr connections, his Wehrmacht contacts, pretty quickly, doesn't he, to get his hands on a factory?
Yes, an enamelware factory. Record Ltd. He renames it Deutsche Emelwarenfabrik, or Emilia for short. And initially, yeah, it looks like pure business. Make money from the war effort. He hires Jewish workers. Why? Because under the Nazi rules, they were paid much less than Polish workers. Simple, brutal economics at first.
Right, just cheaper labor. So when does that start to change? When did the motives shift?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? The factory grows hugely. At its peak in 44, maybe 1,750 workers, and about 1,000 of them were Jewish. Those military contacts he used for contracts, pots, pans for the army, they become useful in another way.
Protecting the workers.
Exactly. Protecting his Jewish workers from deportation to the camps. He started using bribes, big ones, and not just cash, luxury goods, diamonds, liquor, cigars, things that were incredibly hard to get, using them to keep Nazi officials, especially the SS, looking the other way. So what began as, well, a calculation, it slowly morphs into something different, more protective.
It sounds like that business sense, those connections he built for profit, this sort of became this accidental shield.
Or maybe increasingly intentional. He started manipulating the system, claiming exemptions for his workers, the Schindlerjuden, Schindler's Jews.
Yeah.
He'd argue that, wives, children, people with disabilities were somehow essential workers,
Right.
Mechanics, metal workers. It was absurd, but he made it stick.
Faking documents, claiming illnesses, wow.
Anything to keep them off the transport list. It took incredible nerve, constant vigilance.
And then things get even worse. The persecution intensifies. Autumn 41, the transports start out of the Krakow ghetto, straight to extermination camps like Bishek. Then March 1943, the ghetto itself is liquidated, violently cleared out.
Horrifically so. Mass murder right there in the streets. Survivors forced into the new Piazza concentration camp.
Run by Amon Goeth, the SS officer notorious for his just random cruelty, shooting prisoners from his balcony. Schindler must have seen this.
He did. He knew it was coming through his contacts. He actually had his workers stay overnight at the factory to keep them safe during the main liquidation. But witnessing it, The brutality, the sheer horror, that seems to have been the real turning point. One of the survivors, Leon Layson, said later Schindler changed his mind about the Nazis. He decided to get out and to save as many Jews as he could. From then on, it feels like the cost didn't matter as much to him. His actions became much more focused on saving them.
That's a profound shift. From looking out for number one to risking everything.
Huh.
He actually convinced Guth, this monster, to let him build a subcamp at Amalia.
Yeah, incredible, isn't it? So his workers could live there relatively safe from Pizzazzo's daily terror. He fed them better, housed them, even allowed some quiet religious practices, all paid for out of his pocket, largely from those black market dealings.
Which got him arrested, right?
Yeah.
Multiple times.
Oh, yeah. Arrested for black market stuff, even for kissing a Jewish girl, completely forbidden by the Nuremberg laws. The risks were enormous. He was walking a tightrope constantly.
Using the Nazis' own corruption against them.
Pretty much exploiting their greed to keep his people alive. It wasn't one big heroic act. It was this constant dangerous negotiation, bribe after bribe.
Okay, so fast forward to July 1944. The war's turning. The Soviets are advancing.
And the SS response is brutal. They start closing the eastern camps, moving prisoners west to places like Auschwitz. Gross-Rosen. Basically death sentences.
But the clock is ticking loudly.
Extremely loudly. And this is where Guth's secretary, a man named Metek Pemper, plays a crucial role. Pemper alerts Schindler that the Nazis plan to close all factories not directly essential to the war effort, including Amalia, potentially.
Which would mean his workers go straight to the death camps.
Exactly. So Schindler, with Pemper's help, cooks up this audacious plan. He convinces the authorities more bribes, more persuasion to let him move his entire factory, workers and all, to Brunlitz in the Sudetenland. His argument, its vital war production needs to be safer from bombing, and Pemper compiles the list, the famous list, about 1,200 names, his workers plus some from another factory. That list was their ticket out.
But the journey itself, it wasn't simple, was it?
Far from it. A total nightmare for some. The 700 men on the list. They were sent first to Gross-Rosen concentration camp, spent a terrifying week there before finally getting rerouted to Brunlitz.
Oh my God. And the women?
Even worse. About 300 women from the list were sent, apparently by mistake, directly to Auschwitz.
Auschwitz. They arrived at the gates of Auschwitz.
Yes. Facing the gas chambers. Schindler's usual bribes weren't working there. He had to send his secretary, Hilda Albrecht, with more black market goods, food, and crucially, diamonds. It took weeks of frantic, desperate effort to bribe the right people at Auschwitz and get those women released and sent on to Brunlitz. It was incredibly close. A direct rescue.
Unbelievable. So they finally get to Brunlitz. Is it safe? Is the ordeal over?
Safer, perhaps, but still incredibly tough. The factory was supposed to make artillery shells. But Schindler made sure it produced almost nothing useful. It was basically a sham operation.
Deliberately sabotaging the war effort while pretending to help.
Seems like it. He had to buy finished goods on the black market and pass them off as his own factory's output just to keep the inspectors happy. And his wife, Emily, she was there in Brunlitz. An unsung hero, really.
What did she do?
She worked tirelessly to get extra food for the starving workers, cared for the sick. Then in January 45, this train arrives. Frozen cattle cars packed with about 250 Jewish prisoners near death, survivors from a mine the Nazis had evacuated. They'd been rejected elsewhere. Emily Schindler personally intervened, brought them into the factory, set up a makeshift hospital, and cared for them until the war ended. Incredible compassion. And the bribes. They continued right up until May 1945, VE Day.
So the war ends. Schindler's the member of the Nazi Party, former Abwehr agent. He must have been in serious trouble.
He absolutely was, in danger of being arrested as a war criminal. But the Schindler-Juden, the people he saved, they stepped up. They wrote a statement for him explaining what he'd done, attesting to his actions to show the Allies. And they gave him a gift, a gold ring. Made from, some say, gold fillings, engraved with a line from the Talmud, "Whoever saves one life saves the world entire."
Wow. A powerful testament. But what happened to him after? All that money spent on bribes.
Gone. He spent his entire fortune. He was basically destitute after the war. He relied on help from Jewish organizations, donations from the survivors he'd saved, tried various businesses in Germany, then Argentina. They mostly failed. He had a heart attack. It wasn't an easy post-war life.
Financially ruined, but his legacy.
Immense. In 1962, Yad Vashem, Israel's Holocaust memorial, invited him to plant a tree on the Avenue of the Righteous. And then in 93, both he and Emily were formally named righteous among the nations. That's the highest honor Israel gives to non-Jews who risked their lives to save Jews during the Holocaust.
And he's buried in Jerusalem, isn't he? on Mount Zion.
He is perhaps the only former member of the Nazi Party buried there. It speaks volumes. He was complex, an opportunist who, when faced with true evil, found something else inside himself. A conscience, humanity, maybe just a refusal to stand by. His story, thanks to the book and obviously Spielberg's film, Schindler's List, means those 1,200 lives, and his choices won't be forgotten. And fittingly, that factory in Brunlitz, it actually opened as a museum in 2025, marking 80 years since VE Day, a permanent reminder.
An incredible story of transformation. That's our deep dive into the remarkable, complicated life of Oskar Schindler. Thanks for listening. Write us your opinion in the comments on how one person's choices can truly redefine their legacy and impact humanity in the face of unimaginable darkness. Subscribe to the channel to help more listeners reach our episodes. Thank you and have an amazing day.